With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
What a save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle!
The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is champion!
This feels fucking awesome.
And Portland can't say shit!
Nice work on your little yacht.
Villa Vega! Ooch of a gooch! All creatures great and small! Villa Vega!
You know, what was the thought process in terms of who you decided to use and who you didn't?
Ever since Sounder Hart wrote a commentary that we didn't take Open Cup seriously.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome to another episode of Nos Arietes, part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network, and sponsored by Full Pull Wines, Hacks and Ferments, and our subscribers. We're recording on Thursday, August 7th, 2025. I am your host, Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today is my co-host, Aaron Campo, and our producer, Lickett. The Sounders completed a perfect run through Phase 1 of Leagues Cup on Wednesday, beating Club Tijuana 2-1. They now get to play Club Puebla in the quarterfinals on August 19th or 20th. Aaron, given how well those first three games went, has that changed, if not your overall attitude about Leagues Cup, has it changed your outlook on this specific tournament, like the one we're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's impossible not to be really encouraged after those three performances. I think that the last time we recorded, we power ranked our potential outcomes.
Yes.
And at no point...
And number one was winning.
It was.
And we're not like...
And I think like at no point from the second half of the Cruz Azul game on have I had the thought I'd really like them to get knocked out in Phase 1,
right,
because I think they absolutely have a chance of winning it, and I think they have a great chance of getting into the Champions Cup, which for me makes the whole thing worth it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
there are 2 wins.
I guess we'll have to see how
2 wins
long
away
Albert
from Champions Cup,
but yeah, and that's the entire appeal of this tournament. Like if they weren't able to qualify for Champions Cup out of this tournament, I would have been actively rooting for them to get knocked out in the the league or the Phase 1, whatever they call it. And I know there are a lot of people who think that's stupid, and that's totally fine. But otherwise, it's just not appealing to me. But they're in it. They're playing exceptionally well.
Yeah,
I thought that honestly, maybe that game against Tijuana was their best performance of those 3 games. I know that sounds crazy to say when they beat the best team in CONCACAF 7-0, but not to take anything away from that performance, because it was a fantastic performance, but I thought Cruz Azul looks terrible, and the Sounders scored some goals that were exceptionally high quality goals. I think holistically as a performance, Xolos were just, I think, clearly the best of the 3 teams they played in terms of the performance they put in. And the Sounders, I think the Sounders won more convincingly than the scoreline would indicate.
Yeah, I mean the XG according to ASA for this game was like 3.5 and it was only like 1.9 for the Cruz Azul game. So the quality
Right.
of chances, I think, generally speaking, were better in this game. They generated, Foot Mob or Opta said they had 10 big chances. They only converted 2, but they generated 10 big chances. I don't know if I always agree with what Opta classifies as a big chance, but we don't need to quibble there. Point being, they generated a lot of good chances. They put 10 shots on frame. They forced Tijuana to play, well. And Tijuana, I think, came in with a game plan that was a little bit more like a generic MLS team visiting Seattle, whereas both Santos Laguna and Cruz Azul came in sort of with the idea that they were going to press and sort of get into an up and down game at times with the Sounders. Tijuana was not interested in running up and down the field. They wanted to defend, and I thought they were, it was an honest performance. I'm not taking anything away from them. I think they fought for the game. I think the idea, I saw someone commented on one of my stories on Sounder at Heart that the Liga MX teams don't care about this. Totally refuted by all visual evidence. This was not certainly none of the 3 games the Sounders played, but if you've watched any of these games, not caring is not the lack of stakes, the lack of interest is not the issue from a player perspective. Now, is it a fan issue? Fans clearly are not totally buying into this tournament, but that's separate, I think, from the actual product on the field, which is pretty good. Like, I've found this to be a super compelling, fun tournament. Now, it helps that the Sounders have scored 11 goals and generated a ton of scoring chances in every game has been interesting for one reason or another, but it has certainly got me much more invested in the Sounders doing well. Like, at this point, I'll be honest, I'll be disappointed if the Sounders go out in the next round. That would be pretty disappointing. If they don't get a Champions Cup qualifying spot, that would be also really disappointing. But frankly, yeah, I want them to win this thing. I do want the Champions Cup spot, but at this point, there's nothing I've seen that tells me they can't win this.
No, I mean, I think that's maybe Cruz Azul isn't the best team in CONCACAF anymore. We'll have to see. But I mean, they beat high quality teams. I think Xolos are a good team. Santos Laguna, maybe the worst.
Laguna might not be too good.
Maybe the worst team. Yeah, worst Liga MX team we've ever seen. I'm including like that team that doesn't exist anymore that we played a friendly against way back in the day. Jaguares.
Oh, Jaguares.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were just Santos Laguna. Man, what has happened to that team? They were.
I don't know. But you're right. They've fallen on hard times. This was This was a team that was sort of a model Liga MX team in terms of not just their competitiveness, but sort of like the entire thing that they had built. And in Torreon, they have this. They have a great stadium. They are sort of they had sort of become a modern. They were sort of like seen as a modern team in a lot of ways, and that was right up there with Monterrey and everybody else. And they just have not been competitive for, I don't know, 4 years, 8 tournaments, something like that. It's been a long time since they've been competitive. So yeah, Santos Laguna I thought was probably the worst of the bunch. Tijuana did rotate their lineup a little bit, but so did the Sounders. And I think that's maybe the reason I am most optimistic about what we saw here is it wasn't like the Sounders just rolled out their best 11 and ground them into dust and just said, we got to win everything possible. No, 18 different players started these 3 games. There were a few players that got, arguably more minutes than we would have liked. Obed Vargas, I think, played all 270 minutes, which maybe is not ideal, but he looked great. He looked so good. Like this was the Obed Vargas that I think we had always hoped he would be. I mean, he looked like a dominant player at points in all 3 of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having the presence of mind to earn that red card last night is, I think, a sign of how much his game has matured this year, and really like the last 2 months, like he has just leveled up very clearly. I think that the Club World Cup, playing teams that played at the speed that those teams played against, and I think Brian mentioned this in his press conference. It was either last night or the post game presser after the Santos Laguna game. Like, studying game tape of those teams sort of reframes things for you, right? Like when you're used to watching MLS teams or Liga MX teams, and then you're watching game tape of PSG or Atletico Madrid. I'm sure that can unlock some things, for somebody, especially who I think has as good of a natural mind for the game as Obed does. So he's leveled up big time, and I think that if anything, beyond the hopeful Champions Cup qualification that's coming down the pike, if there's anything that is a real net positive for the Sounders from this tournament, it's being able to get Saze de Rosario some minutes. It's being able to see Obed against high level competition again. It's being able to see Jesus Ferreira get to put in the kinds of performances he's put in. Because I think the thing about these games
Georgie
against
Manungu, who we only saw for 10 minutes or so,
right.
also was sort of gave everyone a reminder of like, hey, don't forget about me.
Yeah. Look, and Ryan Kent has looked, I think, outstanding this entire tournament.
Oh man, I thought
Pedro
that was
has.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go. Ryan Kent.
Yeah.
And Pedro.
Ryan Kent, I think, has looked, better than he looked. I think last night he looked better than he looked in his early appearances, because he was able to do it consistently. And I think that that's one of the things about playing, when you're playing MLS teams that know that they are outgunned, they are going to approach the game differently. And I think having an opportunity to play against teams that are not going to just be trying to hack you to death. And I know there are people who will take exception to me saying that about the teams that the Sounders have played in this tournament, but I actually have not, aside from Santos Laguna, have not really thought that they were that physical, that much more physical than an MLS team, at least. But they are, they're going to force you to beat them in a way that I think MLS teams don't always do. And so I think that can be good for a player like Ryan Kent, who clearly is kind of a confidence player, to be reminded of the fact that, I can skin some pretty good players alive when I put my mind to it. And he did that. I mean, I think the same guy, he just totally embarrassed twice in that game, once leading to a goal. And it's just so good to see him finally have that kind of confidence again. And Jesus, I think, looked really good coming into this tournament, but he's just hit another level in this tournament. So being able to see different combinations of guys has been really nice. It's not like the Sounders have had the luxury of playing their set best 11 ever that often this year, ever, right? But they've been able to mix it up even more than usual.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that they have repeated one lineup all season, and it's not even what we would deem a lineup. It was
right.
I would have to go look at my notes exactly, but it was like kind of a random lineup that happened to repeat 2 games in a row. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know who the best 11 is right now, but whoever it is, I don't know that we've seen them start more than 1 or 2 games together, or certainly not more than one, because they haven't used any lineups more than once, or right. except for this one. But I mean, I was very encouraged by Ryan Kent in this game. I like you said, I think it was his most complete performance. I'm hopeful that his injury that he picked up is not too serious. He looked like he was walking around a little bit more easily than Albert Rusnak, who I will say, that's the one gray cloud is probably how serious of an injury Albert Rusnak suffered. He looked really uncomfortable after the game. That's not necessarily indicative of a serious injury, but it's not encouraging. So hopefully he can just miss a couple games and be back, but it could be longer. I don't know. Like, we really won't know until we get an update from Brian tomorrow on Friday. So hopefully that's, whatever, we can put that aside. But I think what's sort of wild about this tournament is that even if he's hurt, I'm still confident. And we had a somewhat lengthy debate in the Sounder at Heart Discord today about who the most important player is. And I don't think it's outrageous to suggest that Albert Rusnak is the most important player. I don't think he is. I think the most important player is probably the combo of Obed and Christian. I think that's who allows the Sounders to sort of level up. And if I had to pick one player, it would still be Christian Roldan. But my point that I'm making here is that Albert, as good as he's been, I do have some base level of confidence that they can cover for him. And either that's going to be Jesus Ferreira or Danny Leyva or maybe Pedro de la Vega. There's a few different options here. And because everyone is playing so confidently, it would be different a couple months ago, maybe even a month ago, maybe even a few weeks ago. It would have been different because you didn't have this team of confident players. But right now, I get the sense that like everyone on the team feels like they can just roll with it. And that's what's been so invigorating about not just the League's Cup, but really their play since Club World Cup.
Yeah, I think that losing Albert is big, and I think that he's kind of the guy that makes their style work as well as it does. I think he kind of ties everything together. He's very much a glue player, and so I think we're going to see some drop off, right? But a drop off in attacking play from where they've been since the Club World Cup is still better than they were earlier this season.
No, ever. I mean, like, the reality is that they've on the 7-game run they're on right now, and I actually had this data wrong originally, but the run they're on right now, the 7-game run, 22 goals in 7 games, that's the best 7-game run they've ever had in terms of goal scoring. I mean, that's 3 goals a game, and they had a 7-goal game in there, that helps, but that's sort of how you get to these big numbers. That's like historically the other stretch of games that was within contention for that was in 2020, which also included a 7-goal game. But that's what's so exciting, I think, is that it's not just, Albert Rusnak has been very good. He's a little unlucky not to have goals in the last 2 games. He missed a penalty yesterday, but then he also had an offside goal disallowed on a great strike in this game. He also had an offside goal in the Santos Laguna game, an even better strike, frankly, that was also disallowed correctly, I'll add, but still, he didn't know that when he was taking the shot. It was a good, so it was a good, he's looked good. But again, what is so encouraging about all this is that they've got 10 players who scored at least 1 goal during just this tournament. They've got, that's not right. No, that is right. I think that is right. Maybe they had 8 players who had at least 1 goal in this tournament and 7 players who had at least 1 assist. Like, they're just spreading it around. They're getting this production from all over the place. You mentioned Osaze de Rosario. Absolute revelation, I think. Like, he's looked good in bits and parts at times, but yesterday he looked like a complete player. He was, it was his finish. Yes, that was a great play, but he had a couple layoffs that were absolutely excellent. His body positioning, honestly, the play that he makes in the build up to I guess his goal was this great play where one of the things I always look for in a number 9 is, can they win balls that it doesn't look like they should win? And there was a 50-50 ball at the start of that sequence that De Rosario sort of body positions his way to winning. That's how the Sounders retained possession there. And then he works his way into the box. And anyway, but I think Osaze de Rosario's sort of like emergence might be the single most important thing to come out of this tournament.
Yeah, I think he's definitely shown his worth, as at this level. I don't know what his ceiling is.
I don't either.
But he has a skill set that the Sounders have not had, I want to say, since Will Bruin, but honestly, I think Will Bruin was a lot better at some things, but not quite as good in the air, and maybe not even as good physically as Osaze is. Like, he's just a big dude that can push people around in a way that the Sounders have not had a ton of guys that could do that.
No, I agree with that.
And it's a really nice thing to have for a team that can at sometimes struggle to, or at least historically has struggled to create a lot and kind of resorts to lumping balls into the box. If you run into a situation like that in the playoffs, I'm a little happier to have somebody like Osaze in there to mix it up with guys than Danny Musovsky or Danny Musovsky alone. And the Sounders are down to 2 senior forwards, and so having Musovsky, obviously, who has been great this year, but also to feel pretty comfortable in the backup is a
huge.
Very nice. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I still want another forward because having 2 forwards does not feel comfortable with the kinds of injury struggles this team has had this year. But I would be, if they don't sign a U22 forward, but they sign, a veteran or a tweener USL type player or something like that, just for pure depth. I think I'm okay with that as long as, they sign a better player somewhere else, because I think Osaze has shown that he can be a really effective player at this level already. I thought that it was probably going to be next year before I was comfortable seeing him get a lot of playing time, but I'm happy to see it already.
Yeah, Osaze creates a little bit of a conundrum for the Sounders, I think, because on one hand, he's got 3 goals in, I guess, his last 4 appearances now, which is great. If he was if he is a recently signed U22 player and was doing exactly what he's doing, we'd be over the moon. We'd be like, what a great signing. So the player that they bring in is going to have a higher ceiling than Osaze.
Yeah.
That's not a given. There are certainly players out there that they can sign to theoretically that they could sign the U22 contracts who present that sort of upside, but it's not easy. And it's sort of like we got Osaze at home. We got McDonald's at home kind of argument here, because why are we going to go out and spend $3 million if that player might not be as good as Osaze de Rosario? And it's a legitimate question, because why would we block this player who we think has some potential just so we can give it the minutes to another slightly younger player? So I think it's a real conundrum. I want to be really clear. I want the Sounders to go out and spend some money. I'm just not I understand how this complicates things. And every goal that De Rosario scores, I can almost imagine the front office getting a smaller and smaller check of which is not the way you would like to go. It should be bigger and bigger check, because it's going to take more and more money to replace him. But I just kind of have a sneaking sensation that maybe it's going in the wrong direction. I'd love to be wrong about that, by the way.
Yeah, I think that I think that the reason that you go out and sign that younger player is there's a huge deal between a 20-year-old that's as good as Osaze de Rosario and a 24-year-old.
Yeah.
And I would like to think the Sounders are conscious of that. But I think if you're going to take the approach of look, we don't want to go sign a player that we're not confident is going to be as good as this guy, great. Go sign a defensive midfielder.
A better player. Yeah.
Right. Go sign a U22 defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or a better player. That's fine too. Either way, don't say, oh, well, we don't need to do anything now. Even though Obed Vargas has played 3,000 minutes this year, Christian Roldan has played 3,000 minutes this year. I'm only slightly exaggerating that number.
Really only slightly. Really only slightly.
Very slightly. Joao Paulo is still a month out.
That's unclear exactly how. Unfortunately, we don't have a great timeline on him. There was originally some hope that he might actually be ready around now, but that's clearly not the case. So unfortunately, we don't know. But anyway, go ahead.
With the history that this team has with setbacks of that type, I will be very happy when JP takes the field again, but I'm not holding my breath for it to be anytime soon. And so I do think Danny Leyva earned himself some more playing time. I thought he looked really good against Santos Laguna. So
I thought he was man of the match, frankly, against Santos.
I thought he was
literally man of the match, but I thought he deserved that.
Yeah. And so hopefully that gives Brian a little more faith in him and maybe earns him some minutes to do some rotation. But he's also probably going to get some minutes at the 10 as well. So I think the Sounders could use another midfielder is what I'm saying. And I'd really like them to make a move in that direction.
Yeah, so just to circle back on your Obed Vargas thing, he's actually played almost 2,700 minutes. If you add in his international minutes, he is really close to 3,000 all competition minutes for club and country, which is, there's a realistic path to him getting to 4,000 minutes, which is probably too many. Let's be honest.
It's a lot of minutes.
it's a lot of minutes. So they need to find a way to get him some time off. I can understand why it wasn't, in any of these 3 games. I can appreciate why he didn't get that time off. There was, there was some talk of Snyder Brunell getting minutes. He did get a few, but and he looked good too.
He did.
The players who didn't get to start that did play in this tournament were Snyder and Georgie, both of whom I also thought looked good. Reed Baker Whiting, another player who has been up and down in terms of his role in the team. I thought he looked really good against Tijuana. I thought that was probably his most complete performance since at least last year, where he's had some games like this in the past. But this was, to me, probably the game where he didn't make any glaring errors. He looked dangerous going forward. Is he going to really press Nuhu for starters minutes? Time will tell. But again, I thought he emerged as a viable player. And we haven't even talked at this point about really Pedro de la Vega, who I think sort of had his breakout before the tournament, which is why I don't put him in the same class. But he obviously had this 2-goal performance against Cruz Azul. He started against Santos, did not look certainly was not as dominant. He looked okay. But then he played yesterday against Tijuana, and he didn't have a ton of minutes, but he looked really good again. He had the ball that set up Obed Vargas for the red card. He had another pass earlier in late in the second half where he ends up setting up Paul Rothrock for either a finish or which more likely should have been a setting up Danny Masovsky for a tap in. I think he gets caught between 2 minds and it gets saved. But there is you can go up and down this roster and there were performances to be happy about. I don't know that I came away discouraged by any one player. The only thing I'm disappointed by is the Albert Rusnak injury. But again, I am shocked at how overwhelmingly positive I feel about the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think of a time where they have been playing both this well and been this much fun. 2014 is the season I think is sort of like the touchstone for a lot of people when they think about peak Sounders entertainment. And I don't know if the 2014 Sounders ever had a run like this one.
They were also so much more a it was a 2-man team who they were in, Lamar and Papa were both good, but they were very clearly second.
Yes.
They were bit players compared to Oba and Clint. And this team was so if Clint or Oba went down, there was no question. That was a huge blow. That was a huge problem. And yet here we are with Jordan out and Albert potentially out, and we're like, no, maybe we'll be fine. It might be fine. It could be. There's a reason to think it's going to be fine.
It's pretty crazy. I think that one of the big topics of the last few years and of the offseason and of the earlier part of this season was obviously Craig Weibel and his performance and the Sounders' depth and the Sounders emphasizing depth over maybe that top end talent. And look, if the Sounders had not had these injury struggles and not leaned as heavily on depth and gone out and made a big signing and gone on to a historically great season, people probably would have said, well, there you go. It's silly to care about depth because you just got to go for the, try to be a home run hitter. Right. But so maybe it's just the way it's worked out has been advantageous to making the point that it's actually pretty important to try to have a lot of quality depth and redundancy. And, it's 2 weeks ago, we were talking about, the Sounders have too many wingers. They got to, it really feels like they need to move a winger. And I think you can still make a pretty decent case that they can. Yeah. But now with Ryan Kent being hurt, with Rusnak out and Jesus needing to shift back to the center, you've got a situation potentially where you've got Georgie as your sub on the wing and not then you're going to not being
able to get on the field.
Reed, Kalani, or maybe beyond, who the only wingers beyond Georgie. So it's nice, especially when you have this many games to play and this many minutes to go around. It is really, really nice to have depth and that redundancy.
I totally agree. Right now, it feels like the Sounders have some reasonable depth at maybe not every position. I think there is still some, like we've said, there's still some concern about the double pivot. Danny Leva, I think, can fill in for one of those spots. Theoretically, Alex can maybe fill in one of those spots. Snyder Brunell looks like he can maybe provide a little bit of relief, but I think Snyder, I'm not at the point, after seeing him for 10 minutes in against Liga MX's competition, I'm not quite ready to start him in important games. But other than that, the depth does feel really good. And I guess there's always going to be the people that point out that they're not as deep as we say they are, because there is a limit to the depth, and they might be sort of discovering what the limit to that. We might like that. Who knows? In 2 weeks, I might be sitting here saying, God, remember I thought Albert Rusnak being out wasn't going to be that big of a deal. Turns out it was. Like that's a realistic possibility. But if I'm being honest right now where I sit, I'm just not as worried about it as I should be. But I do feel like the way that they're playing, and just to circle back on the Jesus Ferreira discussion, if you look at it in one way, it was a frustrating game. He had a few misses that you would like him to finish, most notably the header that he put off the crossbar. But again, we talked about this early in the season, and I'll say it again. The thing that I was worried about with him earlier this year was that he just wasn't getting into good positions, that he just wasn't shooting. He wasn't as dangerous as he needed to be. Well, he's doing that now, and he looks just so much more confident. You look at the corner, his corner kick is what led to the second goal, and he just looks like such a much more confident player. He's playing, he's holding the ball up when he needs to. He's driving at defenders when he needs to. He actually had he scored 4 times during the first 3 stages. It's just that 3 of them were waved offside. But it was, I'm so much more happy with where Ferreira is right now than even a month ago. And you can say that about a whole bunch of players. And I think if there's one player who's giving me more confidence than anything, it's Pedro de la Vega, because this is a player who, we've said this before, but he is looking like a potential game breaker. He looks like a player who, he might not be the best player. He might be the most consistent player, but he's the player who on any given day can sort of take over a game. And we're starting to see that in fits and starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, the other nice thing is that when you score the goals that he scored over the last 4 or 5 games, you can have a performance like last night without people nitpicking it, where you don't get on the score sheet, but you look dangerous and you're doing things that don't show up in terms of goal contributions. And so people don't look at a performance like that and say, yeah, well, he's a DP, he needs to be scoring goals, because he's been scoring goals. And so people, I think, can appreciate that more. And I think that's true of Jesus as well, where, he had some misses, he was offside again, but he also had some plays that were just ridiculous. He had, there was a counterattack where I'm trying to remember exactly how it turned out. I think it turned out with Osaze, just not getting a shot off or getting off a pretty weak shot, but it was a break where Jesus fed Kalani on the breakaway just with a one-touch pass that's just like didn't look like the kind of pass that he would have even attempted 6 weeks ago. And I just think that the whole team has this kind of confidence that I think was missing earlier in the season. They just weren't as comfortable with each other. Nobody wanted to make mistakes. Nobody wanted to mess up, and they don't seem to have that anymore. Like they seem really decisive and willing to try shit, which has been, I think, a hallmark of most of the best Sounders teams.
Yeah. It's remarkable to think of where we were on this team just, a couple months ago. I'll also point out that over their last 20 non-Club World Cup games, and I do feel like removing the Club World Cup from this record is not cheating. I feel like it's a okay thing to do here, but they are basically playing at a 70 point and 73 goal pace over 20 games. I mean, that's effectively 2/3 of a season. This is kind of who they are right now. Like this is like they've done it with a whole bunch of different players and a whole bunch of different lineups, and it hasn't been all smooth sailing during that 20 months. And yes, that 20 months during those 20 games, and yes, those 20 games are skewed towards home games. But that's sort of the thing. They have a lot of home games. That's not necessarily going to stop. But they
right.
Like they will potentially have all home games through Leagues Cup, and they will potentially have home field advantage, assuming they carry on this form in the playoffs. So it's not it counts. It still counts when you win at home. But anyway, yeah, I'm feeling good. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think. Well, we don't need to talk about Nuhu, I guess. I don't want to.
You want to bring it down? What do you want to say about Nuhu? You it's okay. I think we're in a safe place.
I will say a negative thing, and then I'll follow it up with a positive thing. I'm still a little bit frustrated that Nuhu seemingly has just kind of walked back into his old role. He, I think it was pretty obvious when he started the Santos Laguna game that he's back to being the starting left back on this team. And I think that kind of sucks.
And I will say that yesterday when we asked about Reed's performance, Brian was a little downplaying of it, which
is strange because I thought Reed was great.
No, I thought so too. And I actually went back and watched the game today, and I was like, oh, maybe I missed some stuff. And I was like, no, he was really good. So yeah, I'm with you. I do think it's a little frustrating that he just walked in to the team again. I think it's indicative of a couple things. One is Brian is just not he is not a disciplinarian, at least in the way that we tend to think of these things. Like, you can always get back into his good graces. If he likes you sort of to start with, it takes a lot to sort of lose his trust. And Nuhu has pressed that to the extreme degree, and he apparently still has Brian's trust. And I think there's a valid argument to be made that he is still their best defensive left back. Now, I would think that in games where they might know that they're going to be facing a bunker defense, Reed is showing that he's a good option. But I think you're right. I don't think that he's not, certainly in Brian's mind, he's not overtaken Nuhu. And it's not close enough that Brian feels like he can sort of punish Nuhu by not playing him.
Right. So here's the positive thing.
Okay.
Since Nuhu has come back from suspension, he has looked like an entirely different player to me.
Agreed.
I think that he has been much more effective in picking his spots to go forward. He's put himself. One of the issues I have with Nuhu is that I don't think that he's a terrible crosser when he has the time and space to put in a good cross and pick out a good cross. But he frequently wants to dribble somebody to death and prevents himself from getting into a good position to get off a good cross. And I don't think I've seen that as much. His assist to Musovski in the first game back was one of the best passes I've ever seen him make.
To Dero,
Or Dero, sorry. He's just looked a lot more effective going forward than he has in a long time. And he had the mistake against Santos Laguna that was very frustrating because it was a very Nuhu classic kind of mistake of just not moving with the rest of the defensive line, and it's a very frustrating one. But other than that, I don't think he's put a foot wrong in the Leagues Cup. So, maybe it was a situation where Brian said, like, these are the things I need you to do if you want to keep your job, because I'm frustrated with your decision making, and so you need to prove to me that you shouldn't lose your job. Like, maybe it was that kind of situation, right? Like, this wasn't enough for you to lose your job, but you need to prove to me that you still deserve it, kind of thing. And they talked about specific things. I don't know. Whatever it was, I hope that it continues, because if this is the Nuhu we're going to get going forward, like, if he can be this effective, then he should, he should be starting over Reed most of the time. I want Reed to get minutes at left back, because I think the more minutes he gets, the better he looks at left back, defensively especially. But I'm not going to be frustrated with Nuhu being the starter if he's going to put in performances like this.
Right. I mean, it's always been about the performances, and it's never been, I don't think either one of us are like, I just don't like Nuhu and I don't want to see him play anymore. It's just that he is a frustrating when he starts he has a tendency to hurt the team in ways that seem totally avoidable. And secondarily, he just doesn't seem to play within himself as much as it seems like he should. And right now, he is playing within himself. You know, the goal that he had against Cruz Azul, you can chalk it up as, oh, it's an easy finish into an open net. But it was a smart play. He followed up the rebound and he put it away. Like, that's give him credit. He had a great assist as well in this earlier in that it was in that game, right? That was when he had his assist, or was it against
great pass?
Yeah. So it's been, so you know, he's been better. There's a lot to like about him right now, and so I'm happy to forgive him if Brian has forgiven him. I guess who am I to not forgive him, right? So
right.
You're
a guy that doesn't have a personal relationship with Nuhu, and so can maybe be a little more dispassionate. But that's
yeah, exactly.
You're right. It's Brian's call, and he's the guy with the track record of success. So
But I do think overall there is a larger feeling of like okay, maybe we're ready to move on, and that's starting to look like maybe it's not going to happen.
Right. Most likely not this season. Most likely.
Yeah, not this season. I think he's probably the starter for the time being. All right. Well, that said, I think we'll take a little break. We'll come back, and you're listening to Nos Arietes.
Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes Nos Arietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
Nos Arietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. Welcome back. So we decided we are going to power rank the teams that are remaining in the Leagues Cup with a focus on Liga MX. We actually don't know for sure, as we're recording this, we don't know for sure who the four teams from MLS are, because the Galaxy are still playing Santos Laguna. They are currently beating Santos Laguna 1-0. If they win by 2 or more goals, they will eliminate the Timbers from contention. We won't know before the end of the show, though, so we're going to start there. Aaron, number 5, who is the worst remaining potential Sounders opponent?
The Timbers. I know they're not Liga MX, and we're not talking about MLS teams, but they are the worst.
They are the absolute worst. They are.
That's
right. They could have secured their spot in this tournament without having to worry about what happened today, but they blew it late to Club America, even though they had to play with a red card. Admittedly, that's a bummer for them, but them's the breaks. So we'll see if they actually get through. But if the Sounders would potentially, I think the Sounders wouldn't likely have to play them until the final if that were to happen. So I guess we'd take that. I don't know. Yeah. Although it's a little bit of a debate, I think, in the Sounders fandom. Would you, because there's, as I understand it, the Galaxy, if they get through, have hosting rights through the rest of the tournament. So the question is, would you rather see the Timbers eliminated or potentially have to play at LA to win this thing?
Well, is playing at LA any worse than playing the Timbers at home? When, I mean, in the context of
yeah, I mean, that's fair.
The thought of losing the third place game to the Timbers and missing out on Champions Cup because of that makes me physically ill. So,
yeah. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. And honestly, I think I've talked myself into, and granted, this is all moot. By the time people listen to this is not really compelling podcasting, I admit. But if I suppose one thing I've talked myself into is getting a chance to win. Like if the Sounders were to play the Galaxy in the Leagues Cup final at LA, it would be a chance for some redemption, right? Like it would be a chance to redeem ourselves for last year. And you're kind of playing with house money at the same time. So
yeah,
I'll take that. I think that's, so we'll see. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see if we actually get it. All right. So number 4, who is we're going reverse order. Should we go top? Yeah. Reverse order. Okay. So who's number 4?
Number 4 is Puebla. Kind of a surprise that they got out of the league phase.
I'd say
of
a big surprise.
Yeah, they are. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say they were 17th last year in the Klausur table. They have started this season 1 and 2, and then they just kind of like ran into a couple results at Leagues Cup, which great for them. But this is certainly a game. The Sounders are going to play them in the first game, and this is exactly who they would be hoping to play. But this is sort of like the redheaded stepchild of the 4 teams that got out of the Liga MX.
Yeah, they're also currently 17th in the coefficient table, which is I don't fully understand their league system anymore because it's very weird now. But the coefficient table is basically how they determine who goes to the Champions League, who has to pay the relegation fines, right? Because they don't have promotion relegation anymore.
Oh, they have a relegation fine, but not relegation. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's basically that's how they justify not allowing the teams to come up. You have to pay a fine if you finish in the relegation places. So it's like
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's pretty. I can't imagine that this is going to be around too much longer. I would guess they have to go back to either relegation or they just give up the charade.
Right.
But yeah, they're not a great team.
Yeah, I think that's well put. But then the other 3 teams are all varying degrees of pretty good. Who's number 3?
I think Pachuca is a step below Tigres and Toluca. They're a good team. I think Cruz Azul has been better over the last few years, but I mean, man, after the way Cruz Azul has looked in this tournament, I'm not really sure anymore where they are in the pecking order. They're certainly not in the Club America Monterrey tier, but they're a very good team, and I think it's a tough game to get through. I'm glad that we're playing Puebla, and of all the teams that are left, if we have to play a Liga MX team, if we get past Puebla into the semifinal, I would probably prefer it be Pachuca, but I'm kind of hoping somebody upsets them and we get to play an MLS team because they're a good team.
Yeah, Pachuca is the other thing that makes them, I think, a more attractive matchup is that unlike Toluca and Tigres, they do not have any hosting rights. And
Right.
I'm not 100% sure how the Liga MX hosting rights work in the semifinals, but I know that Pachuca, we don't have to worry about that. So, yeah, I think that's if the Sounders were to get Pachuca in the semifinals, that's a good break, so to speak. And then who is your second team?
So this is where it gets tough because I think Toluca and Tigres are kind of in the same tier. I would put them in like the A tier of Liga MX teams, so not the very elite, but very, very good teams that are pretty clearly a step above your average MLS team, I think. And Toluca has actually been a little more successful domestically over the last couple of years, I believe. They are a little bit ahead of Tigres in that they're one place ahead of Tigres in the coefficient table. But I'm going to put them here. I'm going to put them below Tigres. This Tigres team is not the one that was stomping everybody into dirt a couple years ago, but they still have some of the players from that team. They're much older now than they were, but still experienced players that can hurt you badly. They do have hosting rights, I know. I think Toluca does as well, but
they do.
Yeah.
Although in the final, they wouldn't. I don't think they would play Toluca or Tigres until the final. Assuming
so it
I
doesn't
understand,
really matter, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Sounders, if they were to get to the final and they were to play a Mexican team, they would host. That's what we know.
Right. So, which would be great. Honestly, it's vibes. Why I think we're putting Toluca here over Tigres. I looked at how they've performed in the Leagues Cup, and Tigres did smoke Houston, and Toluca didn't really have any super impressive wins. So, I guess maybe that's why I landed there. But they're both they're 1A and 1B, I think.
Yeah, I would agree that it's sort of vibey too, because Toluca on paper I think is probably the better team. They did finish above Tigres in each of the previous two tournaments. So in the Clausura and the Apertura last year. So like that's a reason to like they're a good team. Toluca's a very good team.
Yeah.
There's no real, but I agree with you. I think if I have to choose between playing Toluca and Tigres, I'd probably take my chances with Toluca over Tigres. That brings us to number one. Tigres is still a very imposing opponent. Like, there's just no way around it.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, they're one of the big clubs in Mexico. The Mexican pecking order of the clubs is very weird, and currently America is the best team in Mexico, I think, and that's kind of always the case. But there's this like constant shifting of the rest of the pack. And Tigres are usually towards the top of I think that rest of the pack. They're not quite as historically relevant as like Chivas, for example, but still one of the big clubs in Mexico. And the squad they have, like I said, has a lot of experience in big competitions. They just make me nervous in a way Toluca doesn't. Like there's an aura about them, I guess, that Toluca doesn't quite have, as good as Toluca is. Like it's kind of like no matter how good or bad the Galaxy are, I never want to play the Galaxy, right? Because they're the Galaxy. And even when they were extremely bad, I always dreaded that game. Whereas if the Sounders are playing, every 5 years or so, Houston has a really good team, I just never get nervous in the same way about playing them because they're, at the end of the day, they're the Houston Dynamo, right? Not to say that I think Toluca is the Houston Dynamo.
Maybe FC Cincinnati is a better comparison.
There you go. That's a better comparison. Yeah, for sure. So, but like we said, it's vibes. There's not a ton to separate them. I am hoping that if we get to the final, get to play an MLS team in the final, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think it would be fun to play Liga MX team. I mean, at this point, I feel
if you're
okay
in the final,
you're
in the Champions Cup, I guess. So.
Right. Yeah. So let's do it.
Yeah. and I mean,
but
both of these teams lost one of their phase 1 games, I believe. So
yeah, no,
it's not like they're unbeatable.
No one on the Mexican side right now looks unbeatable.
Yeah.
You know, and the reality is Cruz Azul came into this thing, like we've said it before, but the Cruz Azul came into this tournament as Opta rated them as the best team outside of Europe like a month ago. So, let's not downplay what the Sounders have already accomplished in terms of what against Liga MX's opponents. There's no reason they need to be worried about any of these teams. That doesn't mean they're going to beat them, of course, but there's every reason to believe that they can. And I will give one last update before we close out the show. The Galaxy are currently up 2-0. That means that as of right now, again, things could change, but as of right now, the Galaxy would be moving into the number 4 spot in the MLS table. That would be knocking out the Timbers. And there you have it. There you have it. Could be. I think. Man,
that Santos Laguna team sucks.
They are not good. They are not good. All right. Yeah. Well, I think that's what we got. I'll just remind everyone, this is August. If you are listening to this, there's a good chance you read my post about it, but I'll repeat it again anyway. August is the most important fundraising month for fundraising. I don't know if that's right. Subscriber driven. I don't know what the right way to say it. This is a very important month for Sounder at Heart. Something like 30% of our subscription revenue comes in this month, and 90% of our overall revenue comes from subscribers. So this is a big chunk of the money that we are going to make this year, and this allows us to really budget for the rest of the year. So if you are a current member, just make sure, all I'm asking is that you make sure that your payment is up to date. I hope you are planning to renew. If you like what we're doing here and you want to increase your subscription level, I absolutely welcome you to do that. If you want to even just give us a tip and give us some money on top from the bottom of your heart, we will absolutely accept that as well. Anyway, I also want to say that we're in great shape right now. That things are looking really good. We are as strong as we've ever been, and that is entirely because of the support of people like you. I can't thank you enough for making this possible. I think that we've been able to do a lot of new and fun things since we've been independent. I love the podcast network that we've built. I love being able to do all this stuff with Aaron and Lickett, and it's been a lot of fun. So I just want to say thank you more than anything else. And with all that said, I should also say thank you to our sponsors who also help make this possible. Full Pool Wines. Go to Full Pool Wines, get a crate of wine, get a case of wine, I guess is what the kids call it. Hacks and Ferments, we have a whole deal with them. You can get a free bottle of hot sauce. And of course, thank you to our subscribers again. All that said, this is Nos Audietis, part of the Sounder Heart Podcast Network. I am Jeremiah Shan, signing off for Aaron Capo and Lickett. Remember, you'll never get alone.
I expect a LAFC who's motivated to prove themselves at home, to prove to their fans that they're capable of winning in this league. And it's up to us to really brew in the party.
I feel a lot better than Bob.
Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're grinding out bicep curls or muscling the couch across the living room, crushing morning miles, or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, Smoothie King has fuel to help you maximize your workouts, own your recovery, and elevate your game. Give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs with a lineup of delicious smoothies made to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.